Welcome to the 501 Companion Podcast. This is an educational and news podcast/vodcast for 501c3 charitable organizations that want to create better content, optimize their technology, and improve their marketing to better serve their mission. This is episode 29, and we are just starting our summer shows. My name is Buddy Scalera. I'm the Chief Content Officer and the host of the 501 Companion Podcast. My career is focused on digital marketing, social, emerging technologies, and I'm also a professional writer working and teaching the craft and business of making comics. And I am joined by none other than Sandy Miniutti, the Chief Operating Officer at Family Promise. Sandy's a versatile nonprofit executive with 20 plus years of extensive experience in public relations, marketing, fundraising, and strategic planning. She's committed to advancing a vibrant and healthy philanthropic marketplace in which charities have the necessary skills and resources to solve our community's most pressing issues. And today we have a very special guest. We're being joined by Steve Doud of the Jitasa Group. I may get that wrong, Steve. You may have to correct me on that. Out of Boise, Idaho, whose mission is to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of nonprofit organizations. And Steve's the Vice President of Sales, and he's responsible for executing the strategic marketing plan and developing sales of BPO and ERP solutions for bookkeeping, accounting, and financial services in the nonprofit sector. We'll get into all of that. Please welcome Sandy and Steve.
Thanks, buddy. And I will correct you. It's Jitasa Group. But Jitasa is one of the better things we've been called. So I'll take that. We'll go with that. But it is Jitasa.
And Jitasa has a meaning. I remember looking it up on your website. What's the meaning of?
It does. It does. It's actually a Thai word that loosely translates as the spirit of serving others. And as we exclusively support the nonprofit sector, we thought that was kind of a cool way to tie what we do to, or the purpose of what we do, to the clients we serve. So, yeah.
I love it, and that's great. And Sandy, welcome back. It's been a bit since we've been on camera together, but I'm excited, and thanks for bringing Steve to the show.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Steve and Jitasa. I'm excited that we can have this conversation today.
And I remember you saying that you were excited because Steve, number one, has been at Jitasa. Did I get it right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
For over 10 years, but he's also a colleague of yours. You've collaborated over time. Talk about your relationship with Steve.
Yeah, so like most scrappy nonprofits, when I was a charity navigator, I found myself as CFO and Vice President of Marketing, which is crazy. And I was literally pulling all-nighters to get financial reports done. And I got an ad through the independent sector, which is a trade group for nonprofits, about Jitasa. And we'd been looking around locally for a bookkeeper or CFO or somebody part-time, and it was just so expensive to get that kind of local talent. And Jitasa was this beautiful solution where they could do everything soup to nuts in the finance area for a nonprofit. It was really novel at the time to outsource your work to another state. They could pay your bills. This was like mind-blowing that we could do all this remotely. But for me, they gave me the peace of mind at night to know that somebody with nonprofit accounting expertise was managing my books. I'm not a CPA. I got my master's degree in finance, but like I'm not a professional in that area. So I could really rest assured that they knew what all the current regulations and guidelines were around nonprofit finances, and that they could then provide me a report. They would do all the things and provide me the report so I could have the interesting conversation with the board about how we were managing cash flow, or where we could invest in new programs, or where our revenue was coming in. And it's just been great. And so when I came to Family Promise, I brought Steve and Jitasa along so that they can help mitigate that risk for my affiliates and help them concentrate on what we do best, right? People in the nonprofit sector are really focused on programs and not always on the HR, administrative, finance side.
You know, Steve, that is a heck of a lead-in, and it does sound
I can't beat that. I've got nothing else to say, buddy. This is.
I can't say enough about Jitasa. They really have been a great solution for
Thank
many
you, Sandy.
nonprofits.
Sandy always has been a great supporter of ours, and so I appreciate the kind words, Sandy.
So,
Happy to hear
Steve,
that.
obviously, you are a specialized service in a very deep vertical. Talking about, sort of taking the handoff from Sandy, what does Jitasa do and what are your specializations and why is it so important that you only serve charitable organizations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I suppose it deserves a little bit of background in terms of how we even came to be as an organization ourselves. So our CEO and founder, a gentleman named Jeff Russell, had the vision for this business. And some background on Jeff: he, in a prior life, he was with Accenture for a big part of his career, and in that role, he was working with large Fortune 100s, helping them outsource different elements of their operations to drive efficiencies and optimization. And in his spare time, he did a lot of work in the nonprofit world. He and his wife started a 501(c)(3). He served on a number of boards, and he saw this need in the nonprofit world for back office support and functions around primarily around bookkeeping and accounting. Because most folks, as Sandy was kind of mentioning, most folks go into a career or a nonprofit line of work because they have some vision or some passion or mission to make the world a better place somehow, and usually that's not by doing bookkeeping and accounting. so so Jeff had this idea, and so he left Accenture. He went to business school at Yale with the whole objective of putting together the business model that would ultimately become Jitasa, and came out and launched the business in here in Boise, Idaho, again where we're located, back in 2008, and we've grown quite a bit since then. We can talk more about that. But Jeff's vision and our whole purpose is to help our clients drive their mission or their programs or their ministry, whatever it may be. We have clients in all walks of the nonprofit world. Help them do that better. And Sandy, I think you referenced something, doing what you do best. That's kind of our mantra: do what you do best. We don't know anything about running these operations and organizations that we serve, but we know a lot about nonprofit bookkeeping and accounting and financial management. And so our message to our clients is, hey, you focus on what you do best, your mission. We'll focus on what we do best, keeping your books straight and timely and accurate. And together that partnership will grow. And so it's to take that off the client's plate so they can do just that.
Sandy, it sort of takes me back to a conversation that we had. You have many responsibilities, people you serve, to the board, to your contributors. Why is it so important for you to have? I feel like it's a softball, but why is this so important to have these books straight, and particularly by a team that focuses only on charitable organizations?
I mean, obviously, nonprofits have an obligation to their donors that they're protecting the investment that they've made, and they're doing a good job stewarding that money to bring about the change in the world that we're all here to do. So there's that piece. And also from an operational standpoint, we can't do those things if we're not monitoring our cash flow. I mean, that's a huge problem right now with many nonprofits that got big infusions of government money during COVID, is that oftentimes those grants come, you do the work, you spend the money, and then the government will reimburse you at some point down the line, usually months later than they promised. So having somebody like Jitasa to help nonprofits guide them through that, and that cash flow management is critically important. So, there's the obligation to the public and to the donors, but just operationally, like any small business or large business, I mean, Steve has huge clients, big Boy Scout councils and others, not just small, mid-sized nonprofits. They have to have a solid handle on their finances in order to be able to serve more people and do more things.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, buddy, and you touched on some of the key elements, Sandy, there, but in helping our clients, be better stewards of the funding that they're receiving from their donors, right? And whether that's an individual private donor or a foundation or the government that's granting money, they have an obligation to be resourceful and diligent with the use of that money. But it also goes to their end deliverable is the program that they're delivering and serving. And an anecdote I can share that we always kind of love to tell. This was a number of years ago. We had a battered women's shelter come to us, and they said, we need help because our financials are not in good shape. And we got turned down for a grant because our financials were not clean and accurate. And so we took them on as a client and we cleaned things up. We did a lot of work with them over the course of the next year. They applied for that same grant the following year and were awarded that grant. And they came back to us and said, because of what you did, Jitasa, and because of what you helped us do, there are I can't remember what the number was, 50, 60 more women will have a place to come to for shelter when they're dealing with their domestic situation, whatever it may be. And it was kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's what we get deep into the debits and credits and accuracy and timeliness and blah blah blah, which is why we do what we do. But the real reason we do what we do is so our clients can do those things and deliver on their mission. And it was just a great story to hear from this particular client. And we had lots of other stories like that, but that one was one that was really really meaningful for us.
Sandy, you lead a large organization with an incredible number of nuances, and things are moving in different locations all at once. And you've talked to me about the challenges of governing all of that. Now, we should say this isn't like a paid promotion. This isn't we're just here and nothing of that nature. But talk to me about your journey, Sandy, in realizing where you needed help and what it means to sometimes let go of a part of what you do. I mean, you said you have a degree in this, and yet you had to let this go. Was that difficult for you? Was it a relief?
I mean, that's a good point. That's another thing that many of my affiliates are struggling with right now as they scale up, because many of them have during COVID. You go from being the person that does all the things to having to let go of pieces of it to other people, and whether that's outsourced or internal. And that's really hard to give up that control. I think when we gave up the financial portion to Jitasa, and Steve can talk about this, we did a lot of vetting. Our board was extremely involved. And it was really critical when I was at Charity Navigator. Here we are rating other nonprofits' finances. We better have ours in tip top shape, right? So at the end of the day, it was a great choice to let it go, because it really freed up my time to do the more interesting work and being strategic about our finances and our operations, and not having to do all the, pay this bill that's due tomorrow and all that kind of work that has to get done, which is good to know how that all functions so that you can function at a higher level. But yeah, I think it's always a challenge when you have to give away a piece of your job and lose that control to somebody else. But especially with finances, I mean, it's just a huge risk mitigation to have it outsourced. There's a lot of moving parts, right? We have treasurers that come and go on the board, staff that come and go. A lot of my affiliates in particular are small operations, and it's hard to have the necessary checks and balances to make sure different people are participating in the financial process in different ways. So it's great that when you hire somebody outsourced, they can take care of all that for you, and that that risk is being mitigated.
Yeah. If I can chime in again, Sandy says these great things. It makes me think of thoughts. Because all those things are absolutely right. But the other thing that I always stress this in my conversations with prospective clients is that our coming on board, we're going to take great care of your books and make sure your financials are accurate and timely. But that does not relieve you from your responsibility to still be a financial manager. Our role is to make you a better financial manager. So it's still critical that the client plays that role. So, but to your point that, we're taking some of those functions away, maybe the day-to-day monthly activities of managing the general ledger, we're taking that off the client's plate, but hopefully freeing up some time so that the client can now take the data that we're providing them and be that financial manager that they need to be in their nonprofit, because they still have that responsibility. And so we want to in fact, some of our clients have told us, they say, I actually spend more time in my financials now than I did before I was with Jitasa. and that's a good thing. And I'm more aware of what's going on now, and I have a better idea. And when I sit down with my board, I can have a more productive and strategic conversation because I'm more aware of what's going on now with my financials. So that's an important part, that it takes some things away, but also keeps the client heavily involved in their financial management.
Well, that's really interesting. Now, Sandy, often you'll lead the conversation, since you know our guests about their secret origin and how they got here. You want to take over on this?
Well, I was gonna, this is a secret conversation, I guess, maybe. We were talking in our last vlogcast about taking breaks and sabbaticals, and Steve is actually doing that. That's a policy at his organization. Maybe Steve wants to share a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, see, I'll talk more time about a sabbatical than I will about accounting any day. No, it is one of the blessings of our business is that employees are granted every 5 years granted a sabbatical, and that was part of Jeff's vision as well in building this business. He knew his staff was going to be working hard and be committed and dedicated and so forth, and he wanted, in addition to normal PTO you have each year, to everyone to be able to take a 6-week break every 5 years and really disconnect. Because we all take vacations, but we don't always really disconnect. If you're gone for a week, you can put things on hold and come back to it, and or kind of stay on top of email while you're on vacation. But when you're away for 6 weeks, you have to let it go because you can't be there. And so and again, that's one of our one of Jeff's objectives, is to have us disconnect, recharge, and come back energized. And so it's a blessing, and I am happy. I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary, so I'm getting ready for my second sabbatical coming up. So it's a wonderful benefit. And again, but it speaks to, not to get off on another tangent, but it speaks to the need for all of us to kind of disconnect every now and then, and step away, and come back better charged and energized about what we're doing.
I mean, we're definitely dealing with the great resignation right now. I'm seeing that across my affiliates. The work that nonprofits do is hard. And people are really burnt out post-COVID. Just continue to put the fires out. And now that COVID's settling down, all the fires that were there before are coming up. So I think having a sabbatical policy across the board is the way to go. It's definitely critical to give people that time, like you said, to really decompress, really get away, really change their mindset, see something new, and then come back refreshed with new ideas. I think it's critical.
Yeah, and a longer sabbatical like the one you just talked about, Steve, encourages you to do more than a staycation, right? Like you have a couple days,
Right.
maybe you can do an overnighter, maybe you can do a week. I don't know. We go down the shore. I don't know what you do in Idaho.
You tan. Have you been at the shore?
I was down the shore. Yeah, actually, I
Nice.
was.
Nice.
So, then you think about that, the fact that you can actually really travel, I would imagine, helps you to reset and then really see the world that you're trying to serve. Am I on track with that, Steve? Was the first sabbatical remind you of your mission?
Yeah. If I was a better man, I'd say yes. But to be honest, so my first sabbatical, my wife and I traveled. We spent 3 weeks traveling between Cape Cod and Maine, up the New England coast, which we'd never seen before.
Wow.
And then we took 3 weeks and hopped over to Ireland and traveled throughout Ireland for 3 weeks. But it's kind of interesting you asked that, buddy, because it did. We went to places we'd never been before, right? And saw things and met people and experienced food and culture that we'd never had before, and otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so when you're like really immersed in it, as we did. And it gives you an appreciation for the world, right? Seeing things that you otherwise hadn't seen before, and the serendipity of discovering things that you didn't anticipate. And you come back with that and realize, maybe I wasn't thinking directly of our business or the clients, but I came back with this energy that, oh, wow, that was really cool, and it makes me want to go out again and experience more and share more and so forth. And we'll be doing that again when we take our trip this year. So yeah, I wouldn't say directly thinking about the mission, but indirectly it comes back. That's part of that energy that you come back after stepping away and disconnecting for a while and getting to experience things.
I think too, as hard as it is for a leader to step away, it's important to do that for the betterment of the organization. One of the things I learned when I took over the finances initially is like, you need to be off for 2 weeks in a row, because that gives enough time kind of to cycle through some of the financial operations to catch any problems. Like if I was moving money to an account in the Cayman Islands, right, that should come up in those 2 weeks I'm gone. So having a director away, there's that risk management, but also it teaches the organization how to survive when that director does move on. Make sure that you have all the policies and procedures in place. People know how to find passcodes. People know how to deal with different crises. People know how to talk to the board or to donors. So I think it's really, really hard to step away as a leader, but I think it's important for the growth of the organization to practice that from time to time.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Sandy, because I mentioned Jeff Russell, our founder and CEO. He instituted this program, this policy, but he had never taken his own sabbatical.
Yeah, that's
And I think it was, I don't know if it was 8 years into the business, 9 years in, our board of directors said, Jeff, you need to take this for a couple of reasons. Number one, you need to step away and recharge. You need to show this example to your staff that it's okay to do this, as the ultimate leader, as the CEO, and you need to demonstrate to the business that they can make decisions and run the business without you at the helm. And so Jeff said, well, okay, board, if you're telling me. So he took a great sabbatical himself, and it checked all those boxes. We figured out how to do things without Jeff. He empowered us to make decisions, and he showed all of us that, hey, this is something that we all can do and should do. So yeah, I think the lead, there's lots of different ways we as leaders need to set examples for the people we're leading. That's one way of doing so.
Yeah. And you guys have gone really remote now too, right? Since COVID.
Yeah. Like most everyone, we're based in Boise. Historically, we'd always had our headquarters and main service center here in Boise. We have 3 other global offices in Europe, Asia, and Central America, but our U.S. operations were based in Boise. On March 13th, 2020, when the whole world turned upside down, we all packed up things, went home, and set up a shop at home. And with the intent that, we'll be back in a few months.
Right.
I think everybody thought
Yeah.
that, and it didn't happen. And as we kind of went through things, we realized, and the leadership team realized, what, we haven't lost clients because of this. We haven't lost staff because of this. We haven't lost any productivity because of this. And oh, by the way, we can greatly reduce some of our operating costs. And so, yeah, we've gone to this remote model, and it's opened up instead of hiring only in Boise or recruiting folks and saying, hey, you got to move to Boise, Idaho, which not everybody may want to do. It's allowed us to recruit talent and candidates across the country that we otherwise wouldn't have had access to. So it's been a very, very good thing for our business.
Yeah, we've gone pretty remote as well. I think the challenge has been for the newer staff to kind of build trust and relationships over Zoom. This past week, we had an on-site retreat and brought everybody in, and I can already see the difference. And we would have done that earlier, but there was all the, variants of COVID. It was hard to get people together still. But I think moving forward, we're going to be pretty intentional about having regular meetups with everybody, just to have fun. Doesn't even have to be a work meeting. But I think that's going to be a big challenge for a lot of nonprofits moving forward. I think they're going to have to continue to offer that remote possibility. Like you said, there's upside. You can get talent from anywhere, maybe that you didn't have access to before. And we've definitely seen affiliates triple their budget, triple the number of people they've served. Our office has tripled. So I think we've still been really successful, but there's it's not 100%, right? Like you still have to put some intention among building those relationships.
Sure. I totally agree.
That's a good one. Now, Steve, as we sort of come toward the runway of our time together, I was wondering, it sounds great that you can go to an organization like yours for these kinds of services. What kinds of organizations are best served by a company like Jitasa, and what are not? What ones are not?
So now, buddy, you said Jitasa that time. So Jitasa. This is
I'll
going
get
to
it
be
after
fun.
we're done with the call. I'll get it.
I'll take you a shot at you each time. No, it's fine. Again, it's been butchered far worse than that. No, that's funny. So it's interesting. We've got over 1,000 nonprofit clients across the country, across I think 48 different states. And clients in all walks of the nonprofit world, as I mentioned, and organizations that range in size from small startups that just got their initial funding and need help getting their feet on the ground and a foundation put in place to these large, as Sandy mentioned, national federations, multi-$100 million nonprofits, and in all of them are, of course, you're talking to a guy who's the sales guy, right? So I think we're the best solution for every nonprofit out there. But there's different reasons why we're a good fit in some of the rural parts of the country, for example. And we have clients in very, very small markets where they may not have the pool of candidates with the skill set to do nonprofit accounting, which is very unique in itself. They may not have the pool of candidates. And so in that case, the need that we're satisfying, and whether they're a small nonprofit or a larger nonprofit, the need we're satisfying there is just access to skill set and talent. So that's a dynamic there. Now, in some of the larger markets, New York, DC, San Francisco, those are some of our three largest markets. We have a lot of clients there. Their needs are a little bit different. They have lots of access to skill set and talent, but the cost for the skill set in those markets may be quite a bit more. And so the fact that we're in Boise, Idaho, and with offices in Costa Rica and Sarajevo and Bangkok, we're able to balance out the cost for our skills and the staff that we bring to the table in a much more cost-effective manner than you would pay for those same skill sets in those major markets. So that's more of in some cases, a business discussion around budget management, because they got access to the talent. They just, from a cost-effective standpoint, they may be able to do it more, or from a cost management standpoint, be able to do so more cost-effectively by outsourcing to a firm like Jitasa. So it's just different reasons and different needs, because those larger nonprofits, they're big enough, they could staff an entire department in many cases, but they would spend a lot more money doing so, considering salaries, benefits, payroll taxes, the time involved in recruiting and hiring and training and managing, and hopefully retaining that staff. The business case is completely different when you look at an outsourced model. So just a couple of, I'm not sure if that made sense, buddy, but just a couple of different thoughts about why a nonprofit and what types of nonprofits we may be a good fit for. There's different reasons based on where the nonprofit is and the life of the nonprofit and size and complexity and so forth.
That's really helpful. Sandy, any final thoughts on this before we start to move into the last couple questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think another reason, and this was kind of part of your answer, that a nonprofit would hire Jitasa is the redundancy, right? I have an affiliate that their CFO quit unexpectedly, and they don't have the skills in the backup. They can do some basic things, but they're in a panic. They need somebody pretty quickly. So if your account manager leaves at Jitasa, no worries, somebody else is going to pick up that work tomorrow. So there's a consistency in knowing that you always have your back covered. And I think all this really just goes back to nonprofits knowing, like, what is it that we exist to do and where can we outsource work so that we can concentrate on our core mission? And things like HR, admin, finances, I think those are great things to outsource to the professionals, the experts who are doing it all day, every day. And then you can rest at night and really concentrate on your programs. And I think To your point, that can be hard sometimes for nonprofits to relinquish that and for boards to understand that. But it can really free up a lot of resources in the end for the nonprofit to be more focused on serving people or cleaning up the environment or whatever their core mission is.
No, that's a great point. And I have worked in the pharmaceutical industry for years and years. And Steve, I worked at an agency that did not take on work that was outside of prescriptions. And the reason for that is we said, look, we don't do anything but this, but we do this all the time, every day. And that was the value prop, which was to say there was nothing else on our plate except for our clients in the prescription space. So I understand that value prop, and I think it's a great one.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So Sandy, you usually get the last question, and before I do a cold read of the final part, any final thoughts that you want to throw to your?
I'm going to give him a trick question. Who's
Put
your favorite
a hard one on.
Oh boy, here we go.
Give us a story about an interesting client.
Wow. Well, I've got this one client group that that does this tremendous work to help families avoid homelessness.
No, you have to pick my
No, you know what? So as you can imagine, and Family Promise is a wonderful organization, a wonderful client of ours, but we've got clients in all walks of the nonprofit world. And I'm going to probably butcher this name, but we have the American Coleopterist. I hope they're not listening right now, but I want to say American Coleopterist Society, that they're an organization somewhere in the Midwest, I think in Minnesota, and they're all about the study of the benefit of beetles. And so, which is, and again, I think it's Coleopterist, Coleoptery. Probably butchering that. But they're all about beetles, and they're totally into beetles, and they establish a 501c3, and they raise money so that they can further research into beetles. It's pretty interesting line of work. And again, we have clients doing all kinds of great things, and that's a pretty unique area of cool pursuit.
That is probably the most unique one we've ever heard of, right, Sandy?
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show you, right? There's over 1 million nonprofits in America. There really are. There's so much diversity. So that's cool.
Yep.
I'm going to have to look that one up.
That is. And so, Steve, traditionally when we close out, we try to find out where people can find both your organization and the best place to get in touch with you. So where can they find the organization?
No, great. So our website's always the best place, right? Our website or URL is www.jitasagroup.com. That's JITASA group, GROUP.com. And on that website is information about our services, our organization. There's a request a quote button if the client wants, or excuse me, the organization, the Freudian, I think of them all as clients. But if the organization wants to learn more and get a price quote, they can contact us through a request a quote button. That's probably the easiest way, because we have a sales team that specializes in certain segments of the nonprofit market. And depending on the size of the organization, they'll get routed to the most appropriate person to speak with them. But again,
and where can they find you, Steve? It looks like you're on LinkedIn, or is that the best place to reach out if they wanted to find out more about you?
About me personally? Yeah, LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn. There's a lot more exciting things to look at in the world than me, though. I'll tell you. But no, if anyone wants to reach me, LinkedIn, of course, they can find me, Steve Doud, DOUD, and I'd be happy to talk with anyone anytime.
Well, that sounds great. And Sandy, where can they find you? I know you are getting more active on social than ever. Where can they find Family Promise, and where can they follow you?
So Family Promise is at familypromise.org, and there's a link there to all of our affiliates if you want to get in contact with a local affiliate. Good place to find me is on Twitter at Sandra Miniutti, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Sandra Miniutti.
And you're doing a heck of a job on social. You're sharing all the different things that Family Promise is doing, and people should be hitting that like button for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Buddy Scalera, and you can find me in all places at Buddy Scalera, be it Twitter, LinkedIn, or my personal website. And you can find us at the 501c3lookup.org website. We hope you enjoyed the 501 Companion podcast and consider subscribing so that you never miss an episode. If you have any questions, show ideas, or you're part of a charitable organization that wants to be on the show, visit the 501c3lookup.org website. You can find our contact information, a complete list of our previous episodes with me and Sandy. And of course, the extensive free resources of the 501c3 Lookup website. Thank you for joining us on the 501 Companion Podcast. We hope you join us again next week for the information and inspiration to take your charitable mission to the next level. And we're done. I'll stop recording. Stop recording.